Warning, listening to Unleash Your Genius can be good for your health.
Symptoms may include looking and feeling better.
More energy, healthier kids, and increased productivity.
Unleash Your Genius podcast brings you the science, art, and philosophy of health, wellness,
epigenetics, and lifestyle. Stronger, fitter, faster.
Naturally, holistically, simply.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Unleash Your Genius. Thank you for joining me. I have a fantastic guest today, and I am excited to speak with this guy because he knows so much about two of my most favorite things, which is, number one, food, and the second one is health. Jamie Farrington is from Des Moines, Iowa. He spent 6 years in the U.S. Navy as a Naval Aircrewman, and in his fifth year, he discovered what true health meant and became passionate about primal living. He then enrolled in culinary school to learn how to cook all this stuff, and he became certified in the Primal Health Expert in 2015 and started his own business the same year called Revolution Food. Revolution Food aims to empower people who seek to enjoy a healthier lifestyle by providing their clients the tools that it takes to take control of their own health. Their programs and services are unique in that they don't follow one specific diet or trend, but they rather teach a sustainable set of nutritional lifestyle behaviors and practices that allow their clients to enjoy superior health and wellness while providing an unforgettable culinary experience. Jamie has a wife, Gabrielle, who operates the business side of things and also does the physical fitness side of the business, and a 2-year-old daughter that pushes Jamie to be a better man. Welcome to the show, Jamie Farrington. Hello, Jamie. How are you?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thank you. Hey, look, so I know I've briefly introduced you. Can you please expand on that a little bit and tell us a bit more about you?
Yeah. So, of course, Jamie Farrington. I live in Iowa, and I am very, very passionate about wellness, nutrition, fitness, and helping people, serving people to become better people, if you will. And yeah, it's obviously everybody's values are made up by their past experiences and how they've perceived the world to be, and so that's kind of what's formulated my belief on this world and where I believe the people of this world are going to go, and the trends that are going to stay and go, and because of all that, I am very, very optimistic. I'm optimistic that fast food and is just going to crash, and it's going to crash very, very fast. And I don't know if on the other side of the Pacific, I'm sure you guys have Burger King, but if they've rolled out their new item, which is I can't even, because I'll never consider to get it, but I think it's like a mozzarella stick, Cheetos or something like that. I don't know, but. And that follows the suit of McDonald's, at least over here in the States. I'm not sure if it's the same elsewhere, but they have reintroduced breakfast. They've extended it to all day now. And those two give me so much hope because that means they're pulling out all the stops to try and keep eating people to keep eating horrible food, their food. And because they realize that this is a very powerful trend, and so they want to keep people in it, and that makes me super excited because when you pull out all the stops, where are you going to go from there? And being a lasting trend, they're just going to collapse. And so that's just kind of an aspect onto my values and where I think this world's going to be. And I think a lot more people are going to be more willing, receptive, if you will, to improving their health. And even though they may not have been willing to do it on a one-to-one basis, which is interesting because I feel like they would benefit more in the past improving their health, going on diets and such. They're going to be much more willing to pay for that because they realize that, as silly as it seems, they're experts in this world in nutrition. Everybody should be an expert in nutrition. In my opinion, everyone should know what makes them healthy. And I think there's this inherent knowledge that people have in terms of what's healthy. Everyone knows that vegetables are healthy. Everyone knows that a cup of strawberries is going to be healthier for you than a cup of ice cream or, a pancake. Everyone knows that inherently. There are just other things that aspects that we've lost over time in recent history that we've just forgotten.
Right.
And so that's kind of my viewpoint, if you will, on where we are and where I think we'll be, and kind of what's developed my values. So,
hey, so where did your passion come from, Jamie?
I'd always considered myself a healthy person, and that's of course a very relative term. But even in high school, I didn't, I told myself that I wasn't going to drink a drop of alcohol because I wanted to be the healthiest person alive, right? I didn't want to drink a drop of alcohol. I didn't want to smoke. I wanted to stay away from fats and stay away from sugars. I was a kid, so I still went towards the fat and the sugars and stuff like that. But there was 2011, I was in the military at this point and had a lot of free time, and I just started to read on the internet success stories from Mark's Daily Apple. It took me probably a good 2 months worth. Every Friday there's a success story, so that's 2 months worth of success stories that I'd read before I finally was like, you know what, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to check this website out, see if it's like, what's this guy selling? Right, I mean, because he has all these success stories. What's he selling? I had no idea who Mark Sisson was. And so I went to his website and I read that day's post, and then I just started clicking on link after link after link after link. And I mean, the first night that I got into, I probably just straight, I'm going to guess 6 hours into just reading article after article after article. And then, the more I was reading, the more I expanded where I was going. So I went to Chris Masterjohn, I went to Chris Kresser, I went to the Kraken, Matthew Lalonde. I happened upon Kelly Starrett, and just all Erwan LaCour, everybody, right? Paul Jaminet, everyone. And that just, I ate it up. I ate it up for, the next year. Solid, where if I was reading less than 3 hours a day, that was very, very, it was a boring day for me. Yeah, and so I just kept fueling that fire of oh my God, just because everything made sense. And I had never read it in a way to where what I was learning was so against what I had known. It made so much sense, and I just loved it, and I ate it up. That's I guess that's when it started, why it started. I lost 25 pounds in 3 months. Health issues that I didn't realize were health issues went away. I knew they were, but I just assumed that I was just going to live with them for the rest of my life, and I'd have to work around them. I had hemorrhoids, and I was constipated, and within a week, I had no issues. And that was enough to be like, okay, something's going on here.
Right. Yeah. The proof.
Exactly. And this may be a little TMI, but probably 3 months after I took the plunge, I learned about the squatty potty from one of Mark's posts. And well, I didn't have the ability to get a squatty potty at the time. I was deployed, and so I was just squatting on the toilet, and that was an experience. Between having to develop my flexibility to do the deep grok squat.
Right.
And then, on a toilet. That was some interesting times, for sure. But so that's kind of where it came from, and why I'm so passionate, because I've helped other people improve their health, and that were far more severe than mine, and it just keeps me going.
Hey, so tell me about the certificate. You became primally certified, is that right? You went through Mark Sisson's course? Yes,
I did. So I think it was probably for the first year, because it's been around since the beginning of 2014, 2014, right? I think it was.
I think so.
Yeah. And so that first year, I wanted to, but I didn't. What was happening in my life at that time just didn't really afford me, if you will, the time or opportunity to kind of delve into it, program. I went through a move and all that stuff. So when I finally had the opportunity in January of 2015, I took the plunge. I was like, okay, I'm in a position to where I can do this. And so I finished it. It took me until August, but, honestly, like realistically, I probably devoted maybe a total of 15 hours to it. So if I was really hardcore, I could have knocked it out that first week. But yeah, so I became an expert last year, and almost vision as to what we could do with all this knowledge.
Right.
So I was super thrilled when I was finished. All the content, and that kind of reignited the flame for my business, Revolution Food. Which is we consider ourselves, just a food and wellness or nutrition and wellness company in Des Moines. So we started coming up with ideas on how we could revamp our business. So we started filming videos yesterday. Of course, we had mentioned, my wife and I, we run it together, doing a podcast, but at the time my schedule was just so hectic. The podcast would have been very random, and it just would not have worked out the way a podcast needs to work out. So we started reintroducing the idea of doing a podcast as well, rolling out coaching program. She's doing her fitness trainer program through National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Wow, that's awesome. That's going to complement you guys really well together. That's
Exact. Yeah. I'm pretty stoked. She's pretty stoked, and so we'll be able to have really, honestly, a holistic approach, business-wise, to coaching people to achieving their goal and their optimal health.
awesome.
So we're pretty stoked. We're pretty excited on that front, and likewise, I'm super stoked for you having this podcast rolled out. It makes me happy, and I know that those in the primal paleo community are doing what they love and helping themselves out too. So,
and it's a supportive community too, which is awesome.
Right. Yeah, it totally is. It's amazing. Like, you go to any comment section on like anything on the internet, and it is just like vitriol, right? It's so much anger toward each other and like hatred, like, I am gonna kill you if I can find you, whereas you go to like Marks to the Apple or like Chris Kress or any places like that in this community that we're in, and it's, for the most part it is really, really supportive. There are a few here and there sprinkled where it's like, well, dude, you've got your information wrong, so check yourself on that. But that's like as harsh as it gets, and it's so I love that.
Right.
It's keeping people real, even the people that are posting content, and there's no hatred or like anger or anything like that. It's just more like, hey, dude, you check yourself before you post something, and it's just, I love it.
Right. Hey, Jamie, I want to put you on the spotlight.
Okay.
All right. So, look, imagine that you're on stage in front of 500 men and women that are, they're about to embark on their first ever 90-day lifestyle challenge, right? They're going to start eating right. They're going to start exercising for the first time, or, regularly. They're going to start meditating. So what I want to know is, what are 3 things that you would want to cover in that speech to give this group the best chance of success, and why? Okay.
So I think you can attest me with me on this. Coming from a primal perspective, we are coming at it at a holistic perspective, right? And so if they've already gone on board with the whole wanting to eat healthy and exercise and live healthy and all this stuff, they already have an idea as to what they need to do. So I wouldn't necessarily touch on that. As far as those 3 things are concerned, the 3 things would be: find out internally, right? Find out what your goal is, what your end goal is, what your health goal is, right? In your own terms, what is health to you? So, for example, my definition of health, or what I see as health, is on Thanksgiving Day, when I'm 115 years old, I'm able to play flag football with my great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren. And that to me is health, and if the next day I drop dead, that's fine. But I want to be as old as I possibly can be, but living my life as best that I can up to the time that I drop dead. And so that's my definition, right? And someone else, their definition, maybe because they are in a state of sickness, their definition is simply to get off medication, right? Or be able to walk without, pain in their joint, in their knees. And so my first one would be, yes, to figure out what your personal goal is in terms of health, what health means to you, what's your definition of health. Second would be, if you are not already happy, make yourself happy. You cannot try to find happiness through somebody else, through something else. It has to come internally. And so there's this adage, that once you stop looking for money, right, entrepreneurship, right, once you stop looking for money, money will find you. You won't have to worry about money. I believe, anyway, the same concept applies to happiness. Once you stop looking for happiness, searching for happiness outside of yourself, you are going to find your own happiness, and it is going to be such an amazing experience. When you stop looking for validation from other people, but from yourself, it's going to be your world is going to change. Your perspective on life is going to change. So finding your happy, it would be step number 2. And of course, not looking externally to find your happiness, but to do it internally. So once you have your goal for your health, and once you find your happiness, or at least you can start working on it, then you need to do some very serious internal talks with yourself. And that, is it worth, to me, in my opinion it is, of course, being at the point I am, but is it worth to me to take the necessary steps to get to my goal, my end goal, right? So am I willing to just, and it doesn't have to be right off the bat, right? It doesn't have to be the first week, but, it's a process, right? So are you willing to ultimately stop eating fast food, crap food? Are you ready to change or shift your perspective on life, which is going to change, your priorities, if you will? So instead of spending money on things like electronics, right, or going out to have drinks, now that's great because you're introducing a social aspect, and I'm not saying don't do that, but reorganize your priorities, and that if this is something that is truly important to you, you need to reorganize your priorities to sending your money first off the right foods, and then money left over goes towards supplements that your food does not meat. It doesn't fully make up, so you supplement with that, right? Don't treat supplements as your main source, but be smart and realize that in today's world, it's very difficult to get all the nutrients that the body needs through simply just food, because modern civilization has just totally wrecked the soil, and that it all begins in the soil in terms of food. If your food is eating plants from not nutrient-dense or mineral-rich soil, then you're not going to get much out of that animal. Sending your money toward the right foods, sending your money toward the supplements that you need to, and then, again, part of the priorities is shifting your time, right, or reorganizing your time, in that you do take time out of your day, for sure, to get, if you're in those longitudinal lines to get the sun exposure that you need, right? To slow life down. When you're eating, when you're with family, not necessarily just kids, your kids or your spouse, but, with your parents, with your brother and sister, if you have any aunts, uncles, grandparents, just slow life down and take it all in. Because there are people in this world who live an incredibly fast-paced life, by the schedule. I have something from 8 to 8:15 to 8:15, 8:30, so on and so forth. I don't have time to, slow down when it comes to eating food. I don't have time to slow down, and just relish, my daughter or son's face when they discover something new. That in and of itself, to me, is a disease, one that we don't realize that we're victims of.
Right.
But when you're able to take a step back and reprioritize your health in your life, then you're able to understand, oh my goodness, sure, what's the way I've prioritized life at this point has worked for me up to this point, but really it hasn't, because you have, you've hurt your health. I'm not saying you have, but you may have hurt your ships with your friends and family, and your relationship with food, up to that point, right, where before they've decided to make that change. And so it's just reprioritize and come to the terms that only you can make the decision to do this. Nobody else. And that's something that I learned when I first started getting into all this, and I was trying to help people be healthier. A lot of people were not receptive because they were not ready to change. They weren't willing to make the right steps, to make the right prioritizations in life to become healthy. They just weren't ready for it. And that was probably one of the most difficult things for me, with someone with all this knowledge who just wanted to help people, right, is just sitting back and let people live a life that was not conducive to being healthy. It was going to lead to them, being on medications, whether it be for pain or for any disease, 10, 20 years down the road. And it hurt me, but I made that realization. People have to realize that it's on them, that they have to be responsible for themselves. And in order to do that, they need to just take a step back, breathe, and realize or just determine if this is something that they truly want to do, that they want to spend their money on, that they want to spend their time on, to improve their health, their kids' health, if they're still young enough to procreate, and and their grandchildren themselves, because you and I both know, the game of epigenetics, right? So what I do in my life before I have any of my kids is going to affect my grandparent or my grandparents, my grandkids, and that's just crazy. And that puts such a huge, not burden, but responsibility, on our shoulders. Like, oh my goodness, what I do, and this is why we have people with good genes who can live 40, 50 years of their life eating whatever they want. They don't, at that time, up to that point, they don't experience any health issues because they're riding on the coattails of their grandparents who ate essentially a whole foods diet. And so they're relishing in those good genes that they're set up with. But the last 20 years of their life, most people, is going to catch up with them because they ate crap food. They lived a horrible, I'm not saying you're a horrible person, but they lived a life that's not conducive to being healthy. And they're going to pay for it. Their kids are paying for it, right? My generation, and then, grandkids are going to pay for that as well. So that would be my three things. Yeah, figure out what health is to you, find your happiness, and realize it only comes from within, and then take a step back and be serious, have a serious conversation with yourself on whether this is something that you really, really want to do, and then realize that you're going to have to reprioritize your life, basically. And it sounds hard, but it's not. It's so easy. it's amazing. Like, I think I know that there was an article that Mark had posted. This was a few years ago, on people who look at our community and they're like, oh my goodness, you're depriving yourself of, bread and dessert, all this stuff, right? And, we're like, no, dude, we're saving ourselves, right? We're not injecting poison into our body. Not only that, but look at all this other food that I can eat now.
Right.
Because
it opens up a whole new world.
It really does, I mean, before I came into this world, I was always like, I'd try this, I'd try that, it.
Jamie, what do people ask you? Like, my most popular question is, so what do you guys eat? Right? I don't eat milk or bread, so what do you guys eat?
Yeah. We love eggs. We love spinach. What else? I feel like there's something else. Real yogurt. My ancestors descend from the Normandy region of France, so I have a high tolerance for dairy, or like Mark kind of and others allude to. Not only do I have a tolerance for it, but I may in fact benefit greatly from it. Depending on how far back that lineage goes to northern France. And so I'll do really, really good cheeses. I'll do the Edam, and I'll do the Gruyere for the K2. And I'm sure it's like this actually for a lot of us, but that scene in The Matrix where Mouse is looking at the screen of code, it's falling, and he's like, okay, what do you see? He's talking to Neo, and Neo's like, just this stuff falling, and he's like, I see a beautiful woman in a red dress, beautiful blonde in a red dress. It's like the reverse for me. I'll walk into a grocery store, and I see the boxes in front of me and the food in front of me, but what I really see are like the nutrient content or lack thereof, right? Like, I'll look at a box of cereal and I'll be like, oh, sweet, sugar and chemicals and grain that I don't need to be eating, and likewise I'll look at, spinach and I'll be like, oh, sweet, this is food for my gut. This is vitamin A, this is all this stuff, right? Vitamin K1 and the chlorophyll and everything. And so I look at things essentially like supplements, right, as individual or complex supplements. And so it varies what we eat on a day-to-day basis, because it's very ironic that, my wife and I, we eat very well. Well, our daughter does not. I mean, she, we don't feed her necessarily, junk food, but to get her to eat anything. She doesn't do meat. She very rarely does vegetables. So, she has to live. So we do make sure that she gets, the fresh sourdough bread from, a few blocks down the road that doesn't have any preservatives, uses whole grain. Well, sometimes they use whole grain, sometimes they don't. We do rice pastas for her. We try to avoid wheat as much as possible. We'll do, white rice, just so she can eat, but I also incorporate butter and coconut oil and lard and all this stuff into it, so her body's at least getting the fats that it needs to, perform properly. And, I don't remember if it was in the certification program or if it was on one of the articles, but, Mark mentions there are essentially 2 times in a person's life where eating excess carbs does not necessarily detriment their health, and that is pregnancy for women, and then that's during the first, I forget the age, but I feel like it was for the first 4 years of a kid's life. Because
they're growing so much, right?
Exactly. And so they need, they don't necessarily need an excess of carbs, but it's not going to hurt them to have an excess of carbs.
Right. They're going to use them.
Exactly. And so, I've used that she's 2 years old. I give it another year before, logic at that level kicks in, and hopefully she's able to realize okay, maybe I should listen to mom and dad and, give it a try. And she does that with some foods. Some foods that she's never eaten, I'll be like, Vivian, you need to just try it. Just try it for me. You don't have to like it. You don't have to eat it. Just give it a shot, right? And so I'll cut a little piece, and she'll either eat it or she won't. And then we'll, of course, reintroduce it every so often. But so to go back to your original question, we do lots of eggs. We'll do protein shakes, like for our lunch. We love Bulletproof coffee.
Tell me about that, Jamie.
Yeah. Okay. So I discovered Bulletproof coffee. It was probably 6 months after I, took the Primal plunge. I was on, the forums or the message boards or whatever on Mark's Daily Apple, and I heard someone talking about Bulletproof coffee, and I was like, what? Okay, what is this? So I went to his website. This was back in 2012, and went to his website, and I was like, huh, okay. I love butter, and I love coffee, and, I do dig coconut oil, so let's give this a shot. Because this was right before he came out with his MCT oil. And I gave it a shot, and I liked it, but I didn't have a blender. I didn't have an immersion blender. All I did literally was just threw butter in my freshly brewed pot of coffee and coconut oil and stirred it around. And that was fine. I was fine with that, but then I was able to do it with the blender. And I was like, whoa, this is awesome.
Was it really different?
Yeah, it really was, because it went from chemistry, right?
Sure.
Fat floats to the top. And so as you're drinking this coffee, you've got this really filmy, fatty, feel on your lips. And it's like, huh, I don't know if I really dig this. I was fine with it, but until I got a blender and I blended it because that actually blends it, obviously very rapidly into it. And so it's a much longer, if you will, temporary emulsion than just stirring it with a spoon. But yeah, it went from this coffee with oil on the top and butter on the top to this latte as he had described it. And I was like, okay, I was strictly a black coffee drinker up to that point. I was like, I can't do cream. I can't do sugar. I hate sugar in my coffee. I did this, and I was like, well, okay, so it's either black coffee for me or it's Bulletproof for me because it works. And it did. It's amazing just how it affects your ghrelin hormone. The days, let's say I were to do a day, today I did Bulletproof coffee at, I don't know, it was 9:30 in the morning, and I didn't eat lunch or breakfast, whatever, until 1, I think it was 1 o'clock. And I felt fine until then. But tomorrow, if I don't do Bulletproof coffee, I'll probably be hungry around 11. And so, it's amazing. We know that ghrelin is essentially based on your a body timer, right? It's an alarm clock. Like, hey, you usually eat at this time of the day, so go ahead and eat right now, please. And kind of interesting how the Bulletproof coffee will extend that, with a body that I've controlled my ghrelin and leptin and other hormones as much as I can. And it's amazing how much it just extends it because you're, consuming all that fat. And so, when you drink coffee, it's a thermogenic, so that it immediately tells your body to burn fat. So you're burning fat while you're drinking coffee. That's why it's a thermogenic. And well, hey, if you're already a fat burning beast and then you drink coffee, which tells your body to burn fat, and then you just ingested fat, which is going to be used as fuel once the thermogenic effect of the coffee wears off, holy crap, you just gave yourself hours before you're hungry again and you have energy. And so it's beautiful. And I've thrown eggs in there too, just like Mark does, and I enjoy that. But at the same time, I do notice that it does shorten the time that I can go by about an hour than if I were to do actual Bulletproof coffee with just the MCT and just the butter. And I like to throw cinnamon in mine too, because I'm crazy and I love cinnamon. So
Nice.
yeah.
Hey, thanks, man. Hey, we're running out of time. I want to talk about Revolution Food.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So in 2014, spring semester, I decided that I wanted to change my career path, because initially it was going toward the veterinarian route. I wanted to apply my knowledge and belief system on the human body and pass that on to animals, because animals eat worse than we do, or just as bad anyway. That changed when I heard that there was a culinary program at the community college that I was enrolled in, and I was like, okay, all right. So I've developed this passion for cooking because I've had to, right? Going primal, you necessarily have to cook for yourself at that point. And I was like, I've developed this passion. Why don't I, learn the tools and skill set to become an actual chef? And then once I'm done with school, I'll apply that knowledge in the culinary world. And in Des Moines, it's that trend of primal paleo, whole foods, ancestral eating is up and coming. It's still in its infancy. And so there aren't any restaurants around that cater to the paleo primal folk. And I was like, you know what? Running a restaurant is super expensive, right? All that overhead and low margins, profit margins. Why don't I do a food truck? And so Revolution Food kind of came about in that, okay, I'm going to try and have nutritional clients for the next year while I'm still in school. I had a year left at that point. I'll do that, and we'll start branding, right, and marketing Revolution Food for, hey, we're going to open up a food truck because that's a trend that's going on in the country and probably the world. But it's a trend that's going on. And, the timing works out perfectly where when I'd get out and I would open up my own primal food truck, that would just be coming to Des Moines, and it would be so incredibly received. And also at that point, the paleo movement, primal movement, will be strong enough in Des Moines for it to work out. So that was the intention, was to have, like a client base leading up to it, and then marketing, and social media and friends and, word of mouth. And so that didn't really work out, though, because it turns out people don't like to be told what to eat.
No way.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. Even though they have diabetes that can be taken care of, in 2 weeks, or whatever, they just don't think. They're like, they have so much pride. They're like, well, yeah, I know what he's going to tell me. It's just a matter of doing it. And then, I'm coming from, no, you actually have no idea what I'm going to tell you, because it would blow your mind. You wouldn't believe me. And, but yeah, so that didn't go off very well. So then it turned into, okay, what do we do to make money? Because here I was working a full-time position at a factory, making decent money, enough to pay the bills, but it was full-time. I was going to school full-time. And I was just like, I can't do this for much longer. Like, I need to start, getting into the industry that I want to be in. And so we ended up testing a couple ideas in the culinary realm. In that, do we want to cater? Do I want to do personal chef stuff? What have you, before the food truck opens? Well, we landed on meal delivery. And so we were, from August until May, so through April, we were doing meal delivery service for families that wanted it. So I would cook paleo primal meals for these families that they could eat throughout the week. And typically they were dinners. It worked out, and it was sustainable, and that the business itself was sustainable, but there weren't enough people to pay the bills that needed to be paid. Right. And so we had to put that on suspension, took on a job in a kitchen, and I just recently left that job to take a job as a wine clerk. And so very interesting gig, because our intention in about a year is to collaborate with a couple other businesses in Iowa in opening up an eatery market that is purely ancestral, whole foods, primal based. and we're going to charge extra if customers want to come in and have breads and pastas.
And organic wine?
Yes, exactly. Organic wine. Nice. And so we have this really cool concept of this bar that we're going to have, and it's going to kind of be our centerpiece, if you will, of the eatery aspect of this brick and mortar, and that it's going to be, you're going to be able to get kombucha from the tap. You're going to be able to do bone broth shots, right? Healing shots, different flavors. You're going to be able to get, the high-end, top shelf liquors that are, triple distilled and so on and so forth. So, people come to a bar, they expect alcohol. Well, okay, we're going to have alcohol. Won't have a ton, but we'll have, probably a couple selections from each spectrum of the liquor category. Right. And then the wines, right? And so we were talking, okay, let's just do super high quality wines, blah, blah, blah. And this was before, right, the paleo and bulletproof wine came about. I mean, this was probably like 3 weeks before I heard about it. And so we were talking about that. And then I hear about that. I'm like, oh, perfect. I know who our wine supplier is going to be.
Nice.
Bar, you're going to be able to order items for the menu that are going to be very French influenced, because I'm of the opinion that French food, honestly, really is like primal, with the exception of, they add breads and pastas and stuff like that. But if you were to take that out, they use the animal fats, they use butters to cook, and they're all about, right? France is all about, in most of Europe, but France is all about sourcing locally. It's just normal for them to eat pastured animals, and so just the whole concept is to have just very few select items of food on this menu, to where like you could get duck confit, and nobody would think that duck confit. If you're just to tweak a couple things, duck confit can be totally healthy for you. So they think of it as just this incredibly savory French dish that super indulgent. Well, it is. It is indulgent because you're salting your body in a good way of all these fats and this protein. And if you turn it into a salad, you've got the greens, and so you're helping your gut out and all the nutrients that come with that. And so that's kind of our intention as to where we're going to go. Our meal delivery is put on suspension until this place opens, and then we'll reopen our food service aspect of our business. But yeah, so that's what we are. Where we've been, and
that's exciting.
Yeah. Nice. I'm super stoked. Thank you.
Hey, Jamie, are you doing any lifestyle coaching now?
Both of those options are there. And actually, I do have a couple clients, and it's strictly on a texting basis. And so they're getting a fairly cheap rate, in my opinion. But as far as the health coaching, lifestyle coaching, yeah, we're in progress, like I mentioned earlier, in revamping our business to hopefully bring in the people that we want to bring in, and that we will have clients, and then word of mouth will get around. And most places around the world, I think, in the fitness and wellness industry are designed to keep you as a client, right? They don't tell you the whole story. They just tell you enough to see results, but not as fast as you could, or not as lasting as it should be. And so you have to keep being a customer and a client to that company, and it just upsets me greatly. Right. And so, as a health coach, right, it's our duty to take them to their goals, and then no longer need us because they've acquired the tools and strategies to achieve it and to maintain it. So that's my philosophy on our coaching program, if you will, is I want to help you as long as you need to be helped, but at the same time, I don't want to help you for very long, because I want you, to be a part of this movement that is, taking the world by a storm. People are calling this, media is calling this a fad, but I mean, I know I've only been, a part of this community for 4 years. This community was already going when I joined, and it's still going, and it's getting stronger and stronger, and there's no sign of it slowing down. And I know this because there are pieces that come out it's almost like on the dot quarterly on like, oh, bad fat, or fat's bad for you. This is bad for you. This is bad for you. When it's all stuff, it's like, no, you're missing the point, right? You are the scientists that are doing this are coming at it from a very biased viewpoint, so they're expecting certain results, and so without even realizing it, they are tweaking the results for their benefit, and then the media puts their own spin on it, and it gets like, oh yeah, paleo is horrible for you. It's not a lasting diet and lifestyle, right? It's not good for a long term, or at least there's no proof that it's good for a long term. But what I love to say, Mark always says this, oh really? Because we've been doing this for a very long time, and it's only recently is when we started screwing that up.
A couple million years, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, whatever. What's 2 million years? Just a fad.
Hey, Jamie, how can people get in touch with you? I know people are going to want to coach with you or get in touch with you. How can they find you?
Yeah, so our business, our website is DSM for Des Moines, DSM, revolution.com. And so from there you can click on the health coaching, the fitness training, which my wife does. You can go to our store and purchase a couple items. Like I'll do an ice cream that's based off of Dave's Get Some Ice Cream. I tweaked it to be my right. And a pizza dough that I'm constantly tweaking because I'm still not super happy with it. Just its macro profile. It's still fairly carb heavy. It's gluten free and all that stuff, but it's still too carb heavy in my opinion. So I'm constantly trying to tweak that. But we've got those 2 items for sale. We this week have been starting to film videos that you're able to purchase. It's a one-time purchase. You have it forever, as long as the internet's around, and videos will just be added, and there won't be any price increase for existing customers. It'll be, maybe in a couple years when we have 200 videos, we'll bump it up maybe $1 or $2, but for new customers, not for old. But Revolution or DSMRevolution.com, you can go to our Facebook page, Revolution Food. There are like 3 or 4 Revolution Foods on Facebook, so just click on the one that's in Des Moines. And Twitter, we have DSM Revolution. So there's a few places you can go to for information. We'll be doing a weekly blog post that they can check out too, that we just started. So that's on the website as well. Yeah.
Cool. Well, there'll be links to all of this stuff on our website too.
Wonderful.
So we'll be finding you. Hey,
awesome.
Jamie, man, it's been fantastic having you today, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I love to listen, but I also love to talk. Just, I'm so passionate, and I know you are too.
Thanks so much for listening to Unleash Your Genius with your host, Dr. Brian Peterson. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit unleashyourgenius.com. We'll catch you next time.
Hey, what's up? I hope you guys liked this episode, man. And if you did, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. And most importantly, give us a review and give us a 5-star rating too, please. All right. See ya.